I imagine that we're all, in our own way, feeling a little stuck right now. To report back from academia, the news that I am hearing is typically about the formation of cost-cutting boards and university-wide hiring freezes for all new employees. That's going to be fun for some of us. Is academia dead? Stick around to find out. So like 17 million people, basically the population of Cambodia, filed for unemployment in the United States in 1 month. About 7 million of those people were just last week alone, and the rest of us are either at home in quarantine or, like most of the people that I know, still going into work. You know, they work at grocery stores, they work in food service. All of a sudden they're very essential employees. It's funny how that works. So I do feel pretty angry, but honestly, that will probably pass. Things are gonna be fine. We're just gonna ride this thing out, right? It's gonna be all right. We're gonna rely on each other. We can ride this out. I mean, I guess we'll see. Outlast 2 is a survival horror game. It was released in 2017 by the Montreal-based independent studio Red Barrels. The story is simple. Two journalists, a married couple, are investigating a mysterious murder of a pregnant woman. They're going out to a very remote part of Arizona. On their way out there, something very terrible happens.
Oh! We lost the engine! Fuck! Fuck!
And this very quickly turns into a search and rescue mission.
She's not in here. Lynn! Lynn!
And quite frankly, after that, the story just gets uglier and more complicated as it goes forward.
Fuck! That did not happen in the crash.
First, actually, I'd like to start with the game's mechanics. Mechanics that can feel a little uncomfortably familiar considering our contemporary moment. Outlast 2 is about limitation. It uses a lack of visibility, very uncomfortable darkness, the scarcity of resources, and the fear that accompanies having no real idea where you are or what's happening to you at any given moment. Using all of this to really make you feel helpless. It prescribes a lot of these limitations by denying you access to weapons. The player is really only armed with a camera. The camera has a night vision function and that helps, but it's still so dark. And the night vision, well, drains a lot of battery. Hopefully you've been picking them up along the way.
Even as the devil turns this world apart. What has ahead? The road back.
As you move throughout the game, increasingly confusing and distressing. And very disturbing scenes play out in front of you. As the story goes on, it's just harder to tell what is real and what isn't. I think what's important to remember is that in the middle of all that chaos, you can't really fight back. You can document things, and you can use that to help you find your way a bit, sort of piece together parts of the narrative. But as the game says, your only other options are to run, hide.
Behold a wheel. There upon the earth is 12 living creatures.
Or die.
We can surely accept the general proposition that, in our societies, the systems of punishment are to be situated in a certain political economy of the body. Even if they do not make use of violent or bloody punishment, even when they use lenient methods involving confinement or correction, it is always the body that is at issue. The body and its forces, their utility and docility, their distribution, and their submission.
When I think about Outlast 2, I think about power. How under contemporary capitalism, under neoliberalism, has power manifested itself? How has it done so globally? Michael Hardt and Antonio Negri explored these ideas in light of what we could call global neoliberalism. By this I mean the sort of late 20th century renewed interest in liberal economic and philosophical values. Market freedom as one of those particular values, sort of an interpretation of individual liberty being another one, in the way that these economic and philosophical ideas have intersected with an increasingly sort of interconnected global financial world. You know, like freedom of movement for the international finance capital, free trade for corporations, and so on and so forth. Hardt and Negri sought to, make a little bit of sense of what, quite frankly, does kind of seem like a big mess. They even decided to give this modern phenomenon a name. They called it empire.
The passage to empire emerges from the twilight of modern sovereignty. In contrast to imperialism, empire establishes no territorial centre of power and does not rely on fixed boundaries or barriers. It is a decentered and deterritorializing apparatus of rule that progressively incorporates the entire global realm within its open, expanding frontiers. Empire manages hybrid identities, flexible hierarchies, and plural exchanges through modulating networks of command. The distinct national colours of the imperialist map of the world have merged and blended in the imperial global rainbow.
Empire represents a very big shift in the way that power works in contemporary society. Changes that have emerged alongside of neoliberalism. Changes in how we communicate, changes in the ways that we police and surveil societies. That all of these different sort of sectors of our lives assemble themselves into various larger networks of power. All of these different elements that are working in individual spheres, yet are still in many ways connected to one another. It's important to remember that these individuals, these states, these countries, what have you, they still matter quite a bit. They play a very significant, very outsized role in how the world is shaped. The thing is, in neoliberalism, all of these parts are sort of arranged and rearranged in a whole bunch of different ways, all from the very, very top to the very, very bottom. It seems like they may be changing themselves and altering themselves based off of their most immediate condition. It seems to be, as they say, that empire doesn't have one single center. I think there's something very helpful about this book, especially how it offers us a different way of looking at the oppressive mechanisms of capitalism in the 21st century. When you complicate the idea of power in the 21st century, it starts to reveal all of the weird ways that up and down the chain of production we're sort of entangled in this network of power.
We want to work now! 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 We want to work!
The antagonists of Outlast 2 are a network of these various different groups of violent religious extremists. There's this group that calls themselves Testament of the New Ezekiel. They're led by this leader who receives prophecy from God, who's proceeded to write a whole New Testament of Christian teaching. The members of this cult all see their own vision of the apocalypse. They see the birth of the Antichrist. So, to combat this, they go on a killing spree. Infants, children, pregnant people. Then there's this other group called the Heretics, a group that is in conflict with and has splintered from Testament of the New Ezekiel, and who really just have inverted the same beliefs. Now, Antichrist equals good, and so they will kill in order to make sure that the Antichrist is born.
Welcome her, infant lord. Naked, hiding nothing. I lay down in this mess.
Crazy motherfucker!
I show
Where
my
is she?
true face. Show me your true face.
On top of that, you have a group called the Scald. These are exiled cultists from Testament of New Ezekiel who live on the periphery and who have created this story, the story of the Scald Christ. Spoiler, they think it's the protagonist. They have lots of horrifying ailments that they think will be cured if they crucify the Scald Christ and then consume his flesh, allowing them to return to Testament of the New Ezekiel.
He is pure. He is the Skull Messiah. He will be nailed to a cross and die, and he will be buried. But he will rise again in more perfect flesh, and we shall inherit this broken earth. Oh, Nick, I guess we better put those nails in.
Wait!
And then we have the Murkoff Corporation. This is a transnational corporation who are very mysterious, but who absolutely have something to do with the continued hallucinations the protagonist is experiencing in this game.
Daddy, help! Fire! The landfill, Daddy! Please!
What the fuck was that?
Daddy, help! Oh, God!
They can't even see me.
They may have something to do with the first prophecies that the leader of New Ezekiel was experiencing. They do shadowy work with the US government, and now it seems that they're at the very least in some way directly affecting the brain chemistry of literally everybody in this game, including you.
It is midnight in a night of spectres. Both the new reign of empire and the new immaterial and cooperative creativity of the multitude move in shadows, and nothing manages to illuminate our destiny ahead. Nonetheless, we have acquired a new point of reference, which consists in the fact that empire is defined by crisis, that its decline has always already begun, and that consequently every line of antagonism leads towards the event and singularity. What does it mean, practically, that crisis is imminent to and indistinguishable from empire?
When we pose a critique of capitalism and we attempt to sort of figure out who is responsible, we should prepare ourselves to encounter power in ways that we may not anticipate, in people and in places that we may not expect. I can't help but be reminded of some of the things that I've seen in the news recently. How there are these people in high positions of power who are supposedly on these very striking opposite ends of a political spectrum. These people have been using this political crisis, the one that we're currently experiencing, to make themselves get even further ahead. Having received information about the potential severity of the COVID-19 crisis, people at the highest levers of power in the United States, well, the first thing that they did was reorganize their stock portfolio. And, fun for us, these people have names. They're Senator Richard Burr. He sold about $1.7 million in stock the week before the market crashed due to COVID-19. He's the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. These are the people who have access to the most classified information in the United States and who get to look at all of this stuff, before anybody else even knows about it. Once he found out about this, he dumped his stock. He wrote an op-ed column about how prepared the United States is. Then he proceeded to go to his wealthy donors and tell them that
it is much more aggressive in its transmission than anything that we have seen in recent history.
There's Senator Kelly Loeffler, who after finding out about the crisis sold about $3 million in stock. Well, between her and her husband. Her husband, by the way, is the chair of the New York Stock Exchange. That's something that's allowed to happen.
I want to tell you that the third-party advisors are the same ones that many Americans rely on for their investment advice. I have no involvement in these decisions. This is a very third-party relationship that many people are familiar with. Certainly, I had no involvement.
Oh yeah, also she sold equity in this online travel company a week before Trump announced the travel ban to Europe. There's Senator David Perdue. He made about $3 million worth of financial transactions in the month of March. He purchased stock in a company that produces PPE, personal protective equipment. Then there's Senator Dianne Feinstein, who sold about $1.5 million worth of stock. Now, hers is in a blind trust, but I'm pretty sure that blind trust is maintained by her husband. So, you know, plausible deniability, I guess. There's Senator James Inhofe. Now, Jim wants you to know that his money is managed by a private equity firm, and he had no idea what was going on, because that makes it so much better. And it's not just, you know, senators and Congress people, it's also their aides, too. There's a report of an aide to Senator Mitch McConnell selling stock around this time. There's an aide to Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who sold their airline stock and then purchased stock in Clorox. I wonder why. This is a lot of people and their staff and the other people that they employ to watch their money and then move it around so it turns into more money, who often appear to be competing with each other in a lot of ways, who, based on their arrangements, maybe very conveniently have plausible deniability when it comes to this situation. Yet, when the global alarm sounded, their investment portfolios began to sort of rearrange themselves, each in this very unique way. This is not just exist in times of crisis, like
we got to open this economy. When we end the shutdown, the virus is going to spread fast. That's just a fact. And the American people understand that.
Our objective should be to save lives, and that means we need to fight this pandemic and let people get back to work.
I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. The opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality, and you know, that's, any life is a life lost, but it might be a trade-off some folks would consider.
Outlast 2 is this game that sort of hangs you out to dry over and over again, all the way up and through its ending. In limiting your abilities throughout the game, it reminds us that most of the time we're just scrambling alone in the dark, recording and trying to figure out what is happening as these strange assemblages of horror just pull you in and out of these various very violent conflicts. The game just kind of swallows you up. Blake, it's relatable. The economy has been completely eviscerated. We know what this means. This means that all those people that we just talked about, they're about to come up with all these various colorful reasons to cut the things that you need out of their budget. They're gonna say that it's just for now, but that's not true. And that if we're being real in these sort of vulnerable moments, then we should be prepared for this. The only way that we're gonna be able to fix any of this is if we strategize and we move as a block. Because first of all, I mean, you can't lone wolf your way out of capitalism. The fact to face right now is that if we want to move things forward, we are going to need other people. We should internalize this and act accordingly. Instead of scrambling alone in the dark, we have to organize to take the things that we need, the things that we've already earned, and we cannot ask nicely. We have tried this. We have to make demands.
We need today an international cycle of struggles with the intelligence to investigate the structures of the ruling global order. Sometimes, after all, the theoretical work done in social movements teaches us more than that written in libraries.
Because at the end of the day, when we did what they told us to do, when it came to going to work and trying to get out ahead, we, pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and we work until we get weird calluses on our hands and, our backs are broken at the age of 25. When I didn't complain about not getting a raise above $8 an hour for a year and a half, how I was pretty sure, that my boss was sexually harassing me. When I finally managed, get up the nerve and do the thing that I felt like I wasn't supposed to, which is go and say, hey, I can't really make my rent and I'm kind of tired of pawning things. And when they told me that all of that was worth about, a whopping 10 cents an hour, when in all actuality this is a business that would not have food to put on plates if it weren't for people like me working behind the counter. Honestly, when I get run the fuck over again and again, when I'm told that I'm being ungrateful and that I'm just not working hard enough, that I don't have the determination or the grit, when, man, I'm telling you, all I do is grit. When I think about all this stuff, I start to get really mad, and honestly, I'm not sorry about it, and I don't feel like I should be. And if I know absolutely one thing for certain, when it comes to who's been winning out and who's been getting screwed over, well, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. And considering what these absolutely amoral, cultist monsters have already done, and what we know they're gonna do when things get even worse, at this point, what the fuck do we have to lose? Power. Otis, do not start scratching literally in the middle of my take. Stop, stop. Stop. Otis, I just said stop. I'm in the middle of a take. Stop scratching. Shoutouts to Fatal Frame. Love Fatal Frame. All my homies love Fatal Frame.